All right, welcome everyone to Charlie Crimebuster True Crime Talk. And as we've mentioned over and over again every week, this is True Crime Talk with Charlie Crimebuster, and you can reach out to him with suggestions, ideas, any information that you may have, and that includes crimes that we're even talking about that you may have information. By all means, pass it along to Charlie Crimebuster. He'll make sure that it gets to the proper law enforcement. But you can do that by simply emailing him at charliecrimebuster@gmail.com. You can also visit our website at https, that is a secure site, charliecrimebuster.com. Also peacemakernetwork.com, and also our youtube.com at Charlie Crimebuster.
Yeah. Woo! Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, man. I'm excited about our YouTube channel.
Yes,
James.
sir. Absolutely.
Yes, sirree, buddy. It's great.
We are super
We're getting tremendous response from that, by the way.
We are. We're getting fantastic.
The views and opinions expressed in this presentation are solely those of the individuals interviewed or participating and do not represent those of Charlie Crimebuster nor Peacemaker Network. All individuals described or mentioned in the presentation should be considered innocent until found guilty in a court of law. This presentation contains subject matter such as violence and graphic descriptions, which may not be suitable for all audiences. Listener and viewer discretion is advised.
This week, we've been asked, I know I've been asked a lot of questions about the show and also about our websites. Everyone knows about charliecrimebuster.com. That's one of our senior, most prominent websites. But we also have another website called peacemakernetwork.com. And this Peacemaker Network, that's the one in the middle, that's where you can support this effort that we're putting forward. And when we say support this, we don't necessarily take the money for ourselves. We use it to support our law enforcement individuals and military and first responders. That's what we do. That is how we manage that particular site. It's not for us. It's to support our heroes. And then our last one, our YouTube channel, is where we're going to be sharing with you some actual video and some interviews with some very prominent people within our community and also within different areas of the world, perhaps, at some point, because this is what we do. We talk about true crime, and it doesn't necessarily reside solely in the United States. It could reside elsewhere throughout the world. So we're looking forward to having people join us and help us with this effort. But if you want to visit some of our podcasts in the past, because we're going from podcasts to more of a viewer type of a platform, you can visit our charliecrimebuster.com to visit some of our past podcasts. And these go all the way back to 2018, by the way, just a little FYI. We do have history here. And then we're going to be sharing those as well we're going to archive them in the YouTube channel as well. So with that, let's talk about the Peacemaker Network. And this was your brainchild, Charlie. So share with our listening audience exactly what Peacemaker Network is really all about.
Yeah, it'll be my joy to do so, James. Also, what you said is exactly true. We're still continuing the podcast. We're not leaving the podcast. We're just adding another dimension.
Exactly.
Now you probably can't see my shirt, but can you see that right there?
I'm having a good day.
Yeah. And what does it say below it? Do you see it?
I can't see it. Can't make it out.
It says, "Don't ruin it."
Oh, don't.
I wanted to do that for two reasons. I wanted to get a chuckle out of you, but secondly, Peacemaker Network came because I was having a really bad day.
Okay.
I was out on patrol one night, and I got a call to respond to a house fire. And oftentimes as a police officer, we will assist the fire department. Sometimes we're in rural areas patrolling, and we're there at the fire before anybody else is. And we have to be involved in life-saving situations. So it's not uncommon to get a call to respond to a fire. What was uncommon was that the address that they had told me about on the radio for me to respond to the fire, because I was the closest unit, was my own home, James.
Oh.
And so really, honestly, this
wow.
is my house. It's on fire. And, my children, I didn't know whether they were out or not or safe. So, that was a really, really, really scary ride to get up there. Thankfully, my family got out all right. But get this, it was like three days before Christmas.
Oh, wow.
All of our Christmas stuff that we bought and ready for the children was all gone. Everything
no.
was gone. Our clothes was gone.
Oh,
I was a young deputy sheriff. We didn't make a whole lot of money in those days at all, doing deputy sheriffing. And so, man, I mean, I lost it all, and I didn't have, any insurance, renter's insurance, so we lost it
wow.
all. But here's two things I learned that day. Number one, my oldest son, who was about 13 or 14 at the time, he walked over to me, and he could tell how down I was, and I'm grateful that our family got out all right. But I said, what am I going to do for these kids now? But he touched me, and he said, "Dad, don't worry." He said, all that in there, that's just stuff. That's just stuff.
Mm,
And he really told the truth to me there. That's
powerful.
stuff. What really matters is us as individuals, and that we have each other.
Right.
Just the second thing is that law enforcement is a very fraternal organization. They always back up one another. They always help one another. And I got to tell you, James, word got out in the community because, ironically enough, about a month before that, I had responded to a house fire. I was the first guy there, and I went in and actually brought a guy out of a burning house and saved his life, and it was honored. It was an honor for me to do so. But they had done an article on that, and then they turned around and said, now, the officer that saved that guy's life, he lost his house, and word got out around police departments, and I can tell you, man, within weeks, police departments all over the state of Tennessee was responding to help me and my family. And
Wow.
that's just the way police officers are. And we our needs were met. We had clothes, we had furniture. It was just amazing how this community of law enforcement, first responders responded to me. So I always said, James, if God would allow me, I would like to try to repay this community back. So
Nice.
that's the heart and soul of PeacemakerNetwork.com. As you said, and it's so true, you do not receive any salary or money for what
No,
you do with this. I do not receive any salary or money for what we do with this.
no.
We're doing this out of love and devotion. Now we would love to do this full time sometime if that came to be, and it may well be the way it's growing. But we right now in this particular stage, we don't receive any money. We're not employees of this.
No.
We are supporters of this.
Supporters.
And
Exactly.
yep, and this is PeacemakerNetwork.com. And so when people become a part by becoming a badge supporter, you join James and I in giving our support to these brave men and women of law enforcement, first responders, and the military. So what Peacemaker Network is, it's a network. We make available to these brave men and women who run toward danger. We make available to them resources to help them. We can hook them up to a hero vacation club.
That's right.
Where they can go on vacation for just extremely discounted prices, because a lot of police officers, they're having to work two jobs just to make everything meet, and they don't have the money to really get out and take their families. And if anybody deserves a vacation, believe me, it's these people that are constantly facing stress. And so we have that available. We have resources available. If somebody's going through PTSD, we've got resources for them. Just about anything. If a guy has a dependency problem, and that's very prominent because of the stress of the job, sometimes people these brave folks will get dependent on alcohol. They may have been injured in the line of duty. They might get addicted to pain drugs. There's help for addiction. All of this, we can find them the help that they need. So what we are is a bridge. We are a bridge to get men and women the help that they need. And so we're excited about that. And I hope that in the days ahead that more people will get excited with us. And for as little as $3 a month, you become a badge supporter. That's the basic level. And you can give more if you want to. And again, this goes straight into the website to help us to continue to make these wonderful resources available to these brave men and women in law enforcement. And by the way, James, as you know, this has been a terrible, terrible week for law enforcement.
Yes.
We had 2 officers killed on Sunday. We
Mm-hmm.
had 4 killed on Monday. That's 6 officers. And all these guys were doing, they were just doing their job. They were protecting us. They were serving warrants and following the law, and they were protecting society, and they were literally ambushed and killed. And that's the kind of danger these folks face. So, folks, if there's ever a time that we needed to stand up and support the brave men and women of law enforcement, I believe it's in this day and time. Don't you, James?
I do. And as of this year, so far this year, 98 officers have been shot. Last year, 378 officers were shot in the line of duty.
Yeah.
378.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now that's people that were killed.
Yeah.
There's a whole, several more have been wounded.
Yes.
Assault is up on police officers today because people believe this defund the police crap.
Mhm.
And, there are people that are speaking. Not every police officer out there is perfect. You're not going to have perfect people. They're not perfect doctors. They're not perfect and not perfect workers. There's going to be a bad apple every now and then. But I tell you that 95%, even more than that, of the men and women that I know are dedicated people who want nothing more than to protect and serve. And we need to back these folks.
Well, it's interesting. Thomas Abt, who's a criminology expert and a senior fellow at the Council on Criminal Justice, among others, he cited that there were a few potential explanations as to why. One is the fraying social connections due to the COVID-19 pandemic, and then there's the murder of George Floyd, resulting in public distrust of the police. And then there's also a surge in firearm sales and gun ownership. And get this, here's something you might find interesting. Do you know the percentage of why assailants and the motives of why they do not want to get caught and they shoot at officers? The number one reason is they desire to escape arrest, 40%.
Mm-hmm.
And then the second one is 28%. They hate the police.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
There's 68% of the reason why. Officers get shot.
And when you think about it, James, I mean, nobody wants to go to jail.
No.
I don't know that I ever took anybody that really wanted to go to jail. I'll take that back. I had one guy, crazy guy. When we get to our crazy crook, we could talk about him. So, but the majority of people that I arrested, nobody wants to go to jail.
Right.
And
that's right.
sometimes they will do drastic things, to keep from going there, unfortunately.
Yeah, actually, rational people will do irrational things when they don't want to go to jail.
Yep, exactly. Yep.
So what's going on with the carjacking? And I did watch the press briefing handover, so kind of brief everyone on what's going on with all this.
Well, as we said last week, when we tried to catch everybody up on it, I told you that I was pretty sure that this was going to end up becoming a federal case, and that has indeed taken place.
That's right.
Now there's federal charges for these people. As you know, this happened back April 11th. I think what's so amazing about this, James, is that this lady, this Catherine Augustus, she was actually carjacked on April the 11th before 6 p.m., as we can see there.
Yep.
But what is amazing to me is that, within a week, they were already on the suspects.
Yeah.
And keep in mind that this guy had a mask on. When he did it, when he perpetrated this crime, there was no real tag on that Acura, that green Acura. It wasn't a viable tag, so you couldn't look up the registration. Mm-hmm. So this was just some amazing police work, don't you think? I mean, amazing police work that they had these 2 suspects in line and initiated arrest. They got these dangerous men off the street. I think that's the tremendous story about this.
It's the cooperation of all of the jurisdictions that have come together to make this happen. I mean, they literally communicated with each other and shared technology, shared their abilities, and came to, isolated the criminals in this case. I thought it was just phenomenal how they collectively and jointly teamworked and put all of this together.
And you know, James, that is an amazing thing that you said there, because you know I've been around the block a few times in law enforcement, and there was a time when law enforcement was very closed off. You know, it is our jurisdiction, it is our case. We don't want to share it with anybody else. But I'm thinking, you know, that this has become a global society now, and there's a lot more tools that are available, and I'm seeing this happen more and more. Even, you know, with remember we did a whole series on the Idaho college student killing.
That's right.
And even there, you saw jurisdictions working together to make that happen. You know, a whole group of people coming together, and that's what happened here. You're right. You had Osceola County that was involved in it.
Yep.
You had Orange County that was involved in it. You know, you had Seminole County was involved
St. Cloud
in it.
Police.
Yep. Even Volusia County, I think.
Pinellas County face recognition software. Yeah.
Yep. And then you know, one of the guys picked up in Puerto Rico. So you had the U.S. Marshal Service involved in it, you know?
Right.
Yeah. So
DEA, Postal Service.
Yeah.
Homeland Security.
It was a beautiful example of law enforcement at its best in bringing these guys to justice.
Justice collaboration. Yeah.
Yep. Exactly. Yeah.
It's fantastic.
You know, something that I haven't been able to find out a lot about, and maybe a listener can help us on this. I've searched some. I haven't really researched it maybe as deep as I should, but I just cannot find anything on the surface other than the fact that the same weapon was used on the tow truck driver and that vehicle was tied to it. But I have not been able to find a motive in the shooting of the tow truck driver that is linked to this. I don't know whether you have or not, but if anybody out there has some good ideas on that, we'd love to hear from them.
Well,
CharlieCrimebuster@gmail.com.
CharlieCrimebuster@gmail.com. Exactly. That's exactly where they want to send the information. What I did find out in the news briefing with Roger Hamburg and the Seminole County Sheriff, Lima, was that he never mentioned the tow truck driver. He never mentioned anything about him or the shooting or the gun used or the weaponry, anything. There was nothing mentioned about the tow truck driver at all. All he did was say that we're early in the investigation. It may or may not be connected. He said, well, there's a lot more information we need to uncover, but it's too early in the investigation to identify how that's all linked together. But he says that this is all new, and he's going to keep us updated. So, it's
well, you know, the thing about it, James, is that, you know, I mean, I know he didn't say how it's connected, but it has to be connected.
It has to be,
because you have
caliber weapon,
10 millimeter shells found at both scenes, and I can tell you, 10 millimeter is a very uncommon type of shell to be used in these type of crimes.
Well, let me go back. I mean, look at all those,
and even the vehicle was tied to it. You know.
Well, look at all those evidence markers.
Yeah,
that had to be a rapid fire weapon. It had to be, you know, so that's what they were saying. It had to be a multi.
But I think I find it strange that we're not hearing anything about that, and that was the very first murder that's tied to this whole terrible tragedy. You know.
Well, the thing is he did tow that car.
Yeah. So I mean,
that's what ties it.
In your mind, did these guys get upset that he towed the car? Were there drugs in that vehicle, and were those drugs stolen? You know, I mean, there's all kinds of speculation at this point, but there's no real hard evidence as to what really took place. And I really would like to see, the local law enforcement be a little more transparent about that. They're certainly transparent about the rest of it. They're sharing a lot of stuff about these guys and what's tying them to this case. I'd like to see a little more shared about what's tied to that tow truck driver's case.
It's interesting you said that, because my next question is, where's the car?
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, I'm sure it's probably in evidence lockup by this point. Or was that the vehicle? No, it was her vehicle that was burned, right?
It was her vehicle that was burned.
Yeah. So it's a tragic story that we had that happen in broad daylight.
And
you know,
thank God for citizens that know how to observe stuff like that and take a
Yeah,
picture.
yeah, exactly. And if you're listening to this, that's all you need to do. You don't need to step in there because this guy he had an AK, he had a rifle, semi-automatic rifle, and I doubt that if somebody had tried to intervene at that point, unless they were trained and knew what to do, they would have probably lost their life too.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. So, I mean, it goes back to what Homeland Security was saying all along. If you see something, say something.
Exactly.
In this case,
Yeah.
not only did he see something, he recorded it.
Yeah, that's amazing.
So,
Yeah.
yeah. All right. You have a crazy crook story for us?
Well, yeah, you just kind of piqued my interest when you were asking me about that, and I was saying nobody wants to go to jail.
Yeah.
But I did. I was on duty one afternoon, and this guy called dispatch and said that he wanted somebody to come and pick him up and take him to jail. He wanted to go to jail. Well, we're not a taxi service. Our jails really aren't, not a place for homeless people. A lot of people use them for that purpose. And so, didn't do anything. And so he didn't like that. So he just decided to go in and he went into this convenience store and he started taking the racks and pushing them down and throwing them all over the place and making all kinds of threats and this sort of thing. So I responded and when I pulled up on the scene of this guy wrecking this convenience store, I don't think I've ever heard somebody that I was coming to arrest say these words to me. He looked up and he said, "What took you so long?" That guy wanted to go to jail. So he is indeed my crazy crook of the day, I guess.
So he was in a hurry to get to the Iron Bar Lodge, right?
Yeah, he was.
That's what Wayne Ivey calls it.
Yeah, thank goodness that was the only time I had somebody tell me they wanted to go to jail.
Right. Okay. So where are we with Chad Daybell and the trial there?
This is a fascinating trial as it's progressing. The last week or so, it's been kind of moving away from the police officers and those that are investigators into the civilian side of it.
Mm-hmm.
And looking at the civilian side of it, I was just listening today. Again, I was listening to a testimony on the stand by Bordeaux. This was the nephew of Lori Vallow, and they had actually tried to kill him.
Yep.
Had shot and missed, and what was really interesting, he was given some of the background, and in giving this background, he was talking about the fact that that up to 2018, that these families was, as a lot of wonderful families are, they loved vacationing together. They loved spending time at holidays together. They had just a really warm time. The children were all playing together. It was a very healthy, wonderful mix of families.
Mm-hmm.
But he was testifying that in 2018, that's when his wife and Lori got acquainted with Chad Daybell, who's on trial right now for triple murder. And when they got acquainted with him, and they got acquainted with his far out beliefs, that he would use these beliefs as ways to manipulate people, and he said at 2018 he could see a difference. He could just tell a difference in the air of the tension that was there between the families. And
Wow.
Of course, they did not want him to go to any of these. They called them fireside chat things that they did. And this wasn't sanctioned, and I think what's very, very important for us to point this out. This was not the core beliefs of the Latter-day Saints, even though they were all members of the Latter-day Saint Church. This is not the beliefs of the Latter-day Saints. This is not the core teachings of Latter-day Saints.
Right.
This is a guy who hijacked theology, who put his own twist to theology, who used it for his own benefit and manipulated people, and even justified murder of two precious children and two spouses as a result of these beliefs. So
Wow.
it was really interesting to hear Bordu on the stand talk about when he saw this change happen, because people said prior to her meeting Chad Daybell and getting caught up in this thing and this doomsday cult, they said she was a wonderful mom. She was a wonderful mother. She loved little JJ. She loved Tylee, and it was a warm, rich, loving family. But it just shows what can happen if you let your guard down and you let somebody get into your circle that can't be trusted, and bad things can happen. Another thing that I thought that Bordeaux said on the stand that I thought was particularly interesting was he brought out the fact that he is a member of the Church of the Latter-day Saints, and I'm not trying to endorse any particular denomination or religion or anything that way. I'm just telling you the facts of the case. And he said that he has noticed, and this is true of a lot of churches, that when people get away from the core beliefs and start going out on tangents on their own, then they fall away from God. And that's what happened here, because there's no way you can tell me that these guys were getting closer to God when they were already planning the deaths of other people.
That's right.
and manipulating that. So, I think that was a really good thing. I think the key witness was Melanie Gibb. Now, she was the one that was very close to Lori. She knew all about when Chad and Lori met. She knew all about all of these beliefs from the idea of people turning into zombies, a scale of light, a scale of dark. So I think that Melanie Gibb by far gives the jury and the investigators the information that they need to be able to connect the dots and to bring. They already brought Lori to justice, and the next step is to bring Chad to justice.
Do you think they'll have a solution or a resolve, or the case will be pretty much wrapped up by the end of May, perhaps?
I think probably by the end of May. A lot of it's going to depend on how much of a case that Pryor puts on when it comes to the defense. Because the case with Lori, there was really no defense. They just really attacked the prosecution and tried to show reasonable doubt in that. And I think a lot depends on what he's going to put, what he's going to put on the stand. I'll tell you one thing that happened that I think that was very interesting to me. There was a sidebar, not a sidebar, but there was a hearing out of the presence of jury. And I've never seen this happen in any criminal trial whatsoever. On the Easter Sunday weekend, there was an attorney who brought a motion to intervene. And that means that he wanted to set him and his client into this trial. And he delivered that motion on Friday night, late on Easter Sunday weekend. And so, the judge held a special session for this attorney. He brought the defense in and the prosecutors in and sent the jury out for the day. And he said, this is a very unusual motion. And I've never seen this. This judge has been very cool, but this judge was angry about this attorney, because keep in mind, James, for 4 years now, we've been waiting for this trial. And they've been all this plans. And then this guy thinks that on Easter Sunday weekend, before they set the jury, that he can suddenly insert himself in this case. And the judge said, and you can do that in a civil trial, but you can't do that in a criminal trial. But he took up all this time, and the judge told the attorney, he called his name and said, here's your bar number, this sort of thing. And he said, by the way, you got the wrong numbers on the case. And by the way, you misspelled this in your judgment. You misspelled this. You misspelled this. And he said, basically, what he was saying is, how dare you come in here and interrupt this proceedings when we're talking about a life of a person, and we're talking about people that have died. And this is a very serious trial. And you can suddenly think you can just walk in here and do that. and he actually held the attorney in contempt. And now that attorney is assessed the legal fees for both the defense and the prosecution, and the time that the court had to spend on that whole weekend researching all this motion. So I've never seen that happen at a trial. That's been incredible. But I wouldn't want to be that attorney, because he pretty well dressed him down, in front of everybody and national media as well, on that. So that was a very interesting thing. And I don't know why. If he had information that would help the prosecution, he should have gone to the prosecution. If he had information that would help the defense, he should have gone to the defense.
Yep.
But to try to intervene in the trial was just, I've never heard of anything like that in my life. And I thought that the judge handled this beautifully. In fact, to the place that it'll be a long time for anybody ever tries to do something like that again. I guarantee you.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So based upon what you've heard thus far that the prosecution has put on, you're leaning more toward a guilty verdict?
Well, I just don't, I don't see any way any reasonable person can sit on that jury and not come to the point that Chad Daybell is guilty. I think the mystery in this whole thing is going to be whether this jury will give him the death penalty or not. I think that's going to be the thrust of the decision. I can't say that they'll give him the death penalty. I know how I'd vote, but I don't know how they would vote. But juries can shock you. Can I say O.J. Simpson? I can say Casey Anthony. I mean, those shocked me, and this would shock me too if it went the other way, because I think there's just a preponderance of guilt is very evident here.
Well, they were able to triangulate Alex Cox and Chad Daybell in the same vicinity when the last JJ and Tylee were seen or heard of.
Yeah. And as we, I think, said last week, he talked about, he gave his wife a reason for the ground to be disturbed and the fire there when they were burying those kids and when they were burning the bodies. So no doubt in my mind, he knew exactly what was taking place there. And, then plus they could even tie him, with phone calls and texts. And I just can't believe these people that how did they not think that these texts would not reveal what was going on? They use burner phones, but man, it's all evidence right now. And all these texts are very, very damaging for his case.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, there's a lot. When it comes down to some of the forensics in this case, it's like you mentioned in one of the earlier podcasts and even one of our YouTube presentations, you said it's a digital world now.
Digital.
It's a very digital world.
Yep. Yeah, and you can see their digital footprint all over this case,
Right.
Yep.
Well, I remind everyone where they can get a hold of us and where they can support us.
Sure. Yeah. If you have questions, if you know anything about that tow truck driver, I want to know.
There we go.
Man. Yeah. You can reach me, CharlieCrimebuster@gmail.com. That's CharlieCrimebuster@gmail.com. If you would like to be a part of this great group of people to help these wonderful men and women who run toward danger, please go to PeacemakerNetwork.com. PeacemakerNetwork.com. If you want to go to the website, get caught up on other podcasts, that's CharlieCrimebuster.com. And then, of course, what we're excited about is our YouTube channel.
Yay!
Yeah, youtube.com at Charlie Crimebuster, and you'll find us right there.
That's right. Well, we want to thank everyone for listening today, and we hope that you'll join us next week as we, once again, talk true crime with Charlie Crimebuster. Thanks again, Charlie. We'll see you next week.
Thank you, James. See you next time.
All right.
Hey, I got to say, out there, you folks, be safe, be alert. For the life you save, maybe your very own.
You have been listening to Charlie Crimebuster. You can find additional podcasts at charliecrimebuster.com. You can also support our first responders, military, and law enforcement communities at peacemakernetwork.com. If you would like to make suggestions for future podcasts, please send your ideas to charliecrimebuster@gmail.com. That's charliecrimebuster@gmail.com. Thank you for joining us today, and we hope that you will join us next week for another exciting crime story with Charlie Crimebuster.